So, hey guys.
How's it going?
Good. So I first met Rachel, what was it, 11 years ago or something, with our first child being born. So you were one of
Yeah.
our midwives, and I thought it was interesting. We were both kind of having our first two kids kind of at the same time. I felt like maybe alternating or something. We were like super close. And I've
Yeah.
um, admired you guys a lot from afar because of your amazing wilderness adventures, because I think it's so cool that you live in a place that is surrounded by so much nature. See you guys explore. You're like, I feel like there's a kinship because Jason and I love to be in nature a lot. And actually, we miss that a lot about living here in Malawi just because we're in the city and we're in a compound with walls. And I've like never lived in a way like that before. Like there's no parks and playgrounds, and hiking is like, I just like miss being out in nature like that. And so I love seeing all your adventures, like with your chickens and ice, your massive lake ice rink. I think I was seeing your daughter skating across it or something, and making soap and homeschooling. You guys are up to so many things. There's so many adventures, which I love, which is so cool. You guys continue to just like do life to the fullest. It's so cool. But I wanted to hear a little bit about, since we're talking about long suffering and perseverance through trial and just facing every day with grace, just to know a little bit more about your journey. Like a lot has changed for you guys in 10 years, and is changing all the time for you, really. There's new changes and challenges at each step. So yeah, I would love to just hear like what some of those highs and lows have been, if you're willing to share, and some of the things the Lord is teaching you and how he's equipping you to face the challenges that you have. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean I think we've learned to kind of live in the moment, I think sometimes.
Mm.
Um, to be present what happens. I think maybe one of the things that this experience has taught me is to how lightly you hold your future plans. I think
Mm.
oftentimes future we think about what we're going to do next. We make plans, and there's a Bible verse that talks about like man how we plan things, and God kind of
Mm.
has different ideas. And I think that's rung true for us, in that like this is not something that ever each one of us imagined um, would ever happen. Like to
Yeah.
go from super healthy, like super active um, kind of lifestyle to like an illness that still have a name. Um,
Yeah. Maybe
and so it's certain.
go back a little bit to what happened at the beginning. Like I feel like after you had your second child, things started to change. And maybe go back to that beginning place, just at the what started to happen. And yeah.
Like I think the illness started with our third child, I guess.
Oh, right.
And I think one of the dreams that, I mean, Rachel loves kids and she loves babies, and that drew her to midwifery.
Mm-hmm.
And it was we wanted always to have more kids. Like the number depended on who we talked to, right? The white want like 10 kids, but I was more like maybe four. But on our third kid, we had an ectopic pregnancy,
Mm.
and they gave like an like a drug for that called methotrexate, a cancer drug, um, uh, because they said it was less invasive than surgery, and might have less complications, and that basically kills like all rapidly dividing cells in your body. And so it was like 2 weeks after that you started feeling weak,
Mm.
and the kind of things just went down from there. I think slowly, I think that would have been like September, and by February, like you started in probably November, you started walking with assistance, and by February you couldn't work. Rachel couldn't work anymore,
Mm.
and so it was just like bizarre slide, right? And
Yeah.
this, and then like what is going on and why.
Mm-hmm.
And, a few different neurologists tell us different things, and testing and stuff like that. Our
Yeah.
first neurologist, it probably will be fine. Just hang out and just see, you know, just hope that it goes away, kind of thing. But it didn't go away, and so I think we kind of daily faced reality that this was becoming part of our life. And we met a doctor in Edmonton that and working with him seemed to slow things down for a while. Doing kind of environmental stuff and nutritional supplements and things like that, some detoxing and whatnot, and that kind of slowed things down. But I think that there's kind of been a like kind of a slow decline
Mm,
in some flows. And then yeah, I think it was just like constantly adapting,
yeah.
to what's happening,
Yeah.
and this function. And it's not like it's a quick thing. It's like been really slow, and so it's spread out over 4.5 years, this slow decline, and each you're constantly adapting to what are the challenges, what are the needs that need to be met.
Yeah.
And it's still like we've been through 3 or 4 neurologists,
Mm.
and they all don't know what's going on. Like it's clearly
Uh,
neurological,
yeah.
and but they can't everything. All the tests are negative, and so we continue. So it's this really bizarre thing. Like there's got to be a
Mm.
reason for it, but we don't know. And so we're left with what do we do in the moment when when we're not doing more testing or more repeat testing. What can we do each day, and how can we fill our lives with meaning, and how can we bless others and engage authentically in community and in relationship.
Yeah.
And that's been a
Wow.
journey, I think, for us.
Yeah. And often grieving at the same time, right? Grieving what's been and also trying to show up for what is and be like, okay, if this is what is, then how do we live to the fullest in what this is right now while still grieving, right? Like at each point, like is this the new normal? Is it going to get better? How do I hope?
Yeah,
And how do I persevere? Like while also, the demands of children don't change. Like you're still raising your kids and right?
yeah,
And still trying to work and manage life and all of those challenges. So tell me a bit
yeah.
about how you guys decided to move locations. Like I'm sure it seemed really intentional, like that you were choosing something like to be in a different place that you could be. Yeah, tell me a bit about that.
Anything? It's more. I'll speak on Rachel's behalf, I guess.
That's
Maybe I
okay.
should reference that. Rachel's speech has been harder. Like
Okay.
its speech is effective, and especially over Zoom, it's sometimes less clear.
Okay.
So you can add anything, you can prompt me. You can still speak, but it's easier for her not to.
Okay.
Everything takes energy, so everything we do in a
Yeah.
day is emotional. So even speaking is an effort sometimes. But yeah, I think we had talked about experimenting with this place. We live in Smithers, BC, and Rachel grew up here. Left when she was 18 to go to UBC to midwifery school, and we built a life together in the Lower Mainland in Langley, and we stayed down there and had a great community. And we had always talked about coming up here on a mat leave, and me taking a contract and her being off, and just seeing whether this would be a space. We both loved the outdoors. We loved
Mm-hmm.
the wildness of this place and the opportunities to just get out and have more space. And I loved my practice. Yeah, and I think the thing that kept us there was Rachel's
Yeah.
midwifery practice, which
Yeah.
was awesome. Rachel did an amazing job, running it there, and that was kind of a big chunk of why we stayed there.
Yeah.
You know, that passion and those relationships and stuff, and so I think when you became sick, it was a question. We said, is this something that maybe would be good to do and to allow for a different space?
Mm.
Your money goes farther here as far as the cost of living was supposed to be less. We did get home there with power. And we needed to make a change because we lived in kind of like a 1980s, upstairs downstairs living, and we were
Right.
upstairs, and the space we were just was a bit small, for a mobility. The halls were narrow, and we had to climb stairs, and we had a steep driveway, and so I was carrying Rachel in and out of the house all the time,
Mm.
and up the
Yeah.
stairs in my climate style, which I still do. I've become quite fit because of that. Um, but, I said to Rachel, like we need, like this is not like long term sustainable. We didn't
Yeah.
know where this was going as far as health goes, but we said we couldn't live like this forever. So we needed a different space. In the Lower Mainland, like um, anything, most of the things that are ground level are like higher end houses.
Mm.
There are like upstairs and downstairs, and we needed an accessible place. and the housing market had gone nuts in the Lower Mainland. And so
Yep,
we said if
still's
we could move
nuts.
a house where we may be able to find a space here that might be mobility friendly. And so we came up and we visited. I had a contract that I was working um, one summer remotely, and so we came up and visited, and we looked at the end of that summer around here, and
Mm, mm,
all the houses, there was like no houses that fit our needs except for one, and we were like, oh, this is a little more expensive than we thought. And we weren't looking for lakefront living or anything like that. It was just like we needed a house that was environmentally friendly, that has mobility and ground floor living, that our kids and everything that Rachel needs access could be on one floor. And so this floor, this house fit all those pieces, and so we ended up um, going for it, and it's been a huge, incredible blessing. And it was all the things that we needed, as far as environmentally friendly for Rachel. There's no transitions on the main floor. Like our kids can be down here, so Rachel can be involved with their lives,
hmm.
and yeah, and then just the access to beauty and nature has been really good. To be outside and not sitting in a concrete box or in a walled in small fence. And so that's been a huge thing. And I think we've really seen God's preparation of this place for us. Not so much that we're like God just made this space just for us, um, but more that He prepared a community and a space to receive us. I think it was a bit of a leap to go from a community that was supporting us well in good relationships, and then start over. And what would that look like? We had certainly relied on the support of the community to carry us in our time of need. And we landed here, and I think within 1 week we were hosting a care group at our place. There's some people from the church that we had hoped to go to that we had connected with the previous summer, and they reached out to us over the course of the year before we came and said, "Hey, you guys want to be part of a care group?" And we said yes, and we said, "Can we
Mm,
host it because we have a space that fits that?" And so we kind of dived into an instant pop-up community of people who were
wow.
looking for relationships, and were willing to kind of enter our broken space and the
Mm,
hard pieces we were dealing with. And I think our hope was to have a space that we could, a home that could be opened up, and we had the
mm.
space to be able to host
That's
um,
beautiful. That's so
the
cool.
house. And so we wanted our house, it feels a little bit extravagant, our house here. It certainly, and we wanted it to be a space that God could use to bless other people as
Mm.
well. So it's of this, and certainly that's been the case in creating community.
Shannon, we had 11 sets overnight guests last summer.
Really? That's a lot.
Yep.
Oh man, if we were living in Vancouver, we'd be like, "Can we come?" It'd be so lovely to stay up
Yeah.
there with you guys. So tell me what are some of the things that
Well, if anybody's willing to travel,
yeah, if anybody's allowed to travel. um, tell me a little bit about
right?
like
Not
what
anymore right
is
now.
yeah, what are some of your, like your daily challenges? What does your daily life look like? And what are the things that I mean, you've already spoken a little bit to how God is meeting you with his grace in terms of the community you're in and the house. But what are some other things that have just been really life giving amidst the trials that God has been sort of meeting you with his grace through all of this?
Well, I think, I mean, our daily life looks like, Ezra goes to school, bricks and mortar. Rachel oftentimes does homeschool in the morning during the week. They go away for a day and a half, our kids, to childcare, so I can work, and I kind of pack all my work in there. And then I think, and then we've been able to connect with kind of kids sports, and that's been meaningful for Rachel to be a part of their lives as well, and to be able to learn how to swim and cross country ski. We live pretty close to the cross country ski area here, and so our kids learned how to do that. And I would take up Rachel on an adaptive sled, and so she could be part of their lives. And um, I think with disability, it's hard to be part of normal life. Like it's a lot
Yeah.
more effort to live. And I think for you, Rachel, like everything in the day is harder. From getting up to getting dressed to the physio exercises to eating is challenging. Like all those things are a struggle, and I think being able to be with our family and with our kids and live alongside like the vitality and their life that they are able to live is a really huge blessing for Rachel. Hey,
Mm,
and whether that's them playing outside or playing games together, or watching them at soccer or something like that. And so we've been really intentional about making space for that.
mm.
We got a dog this past year.
I
That's
saw
a
that.
mile cross, and so she's been pulling the adaptive sled with Rachel, and so we get out, and so it's like even though you can't do it yourself, you're able to live alongside our
Mm,
kids, be a part of their lives.
mm. What have been like in some of the harder times when there's been more uncertainty, or just when you've seen maybe a sharper decline than you'd hoped for? Like, what were some of the like how did you get through those seasons? Like, I think especially like women will watch this and who are struggling with chronic conditions and things that are daily, like the daily struggle to show up to life. So like, but there's times that it's harder, like it's hard enough daily, but there's times that you just feel like you can get pulled really low. What kind of things have kind of helped you through, or what has the Lord done that has, maybe there's certain scriptures that helped you at certain points, or just, yeah, what has sort of helped you push through to keep going, like to keep showing up to your kids and to keep moving forward, even when you get a massive discouragement or, you know?
Isaiah 40.
Hmm?
Isaiah 40.
Yeah, Rachel's just saying Isaiah 40
Mm,
is one
Word over.
is one thing that
yeah.
she holds on to her in her mind
Mm,
and comes back to
yeah.
um, as a kind of a source of encouragement
Mm-hmm.
and a reminder.
Yeah.
And others, I think Rachel like continues to do devotions. I think there's
Mm,
this thing of like how I think remaining hopeful despite the pieces. And I
mm-hmm.
think what I noticed for Rachel is that she chooses to engage in life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even in the hard time, you'll do devotions, and you continue to turn towards life instead of
Mm,
the hopelessness. It's like an effortful act. It seems like
mm,
to turn towards hopefulness, to hold hopefulness, and even if that's in the next day or two, right? Like it's not that you don't know what comes down the road.
mm-hmm.
Um, you hold that lightly, but it's also in some ways it seems like an intention that you
Mm-hmm.
set for yourself every day, right? And so for Rachel, yeah, I think it's doing devotions every day and searching for that hope and that encouragement,
Mm-hmm.
um, even though the hard times are there,
Yeah.
and to be careful with the
One
changes.
one interesting theme that I keep seeing up talking to women with, I mean, just a variety of different difficult life circumstances that are consistently difficult, right? We're talking about like long suffering, things that are consistently you just gotta. What one thing I keep hearing is just the battle of the mind, and like just how important it is to yeah, to like the Bible talks about transforming our mind and like actually fixing our eyes on Jesus, and that thought life is so huge. Would you say the same? Like just like that's so much of the battle is just the mind. Like, you can think
Mm-hmm.
about the discouraging parts, but you can also fix your mind on like it's constant, just that battle to just like keep focusing on what's ahead in Christ and what you have in Christ and the things that are already in front of you that are God's gifts. Like, would you say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Like I think
It's a choice.
it's a choice,
it's a
and I think
choice.
like,
Yeah.
and it's I think maybe one thing that's been an incredible is just to see the impact that choice it has had on other people.
Mm,
From doctors, we had some procedures done, and the doctor, we'd never met him before, and the specialist was like, I'm just so encouraged by the joy and the life that you have,
mm,
and that hopefulness that you have, and it comes, that joy is a choice in some ways.
mm,
Like it's not like an emotion that you like feel it. It's almost like an intention that you set your mind towards holding those things and focusing on those things. And then you hear that coming back to you, fed back to you from random specialists who are like never met you, and they're like, oh, I'm so encouraged by the way you've approached this illness, right? Despite the changes and the fear and the uncertainty. Um, but I think it's like, yeah, and then you have to really be really intentional about it. And yeah, those hard moments that you're like, there's fear there, right? And and there's no guarantees, right? There's no guarantees that we're gonna live like there is guarantee for tomorrow, but essentially we don't know what tomorrow will bring, and I think it's for us, we just trust, in the way that God has provided for us, that He will give us what we need, and in each day, whether that be, the physio visit, or to get through hard moments, or yeah, dealing with side effects of treatment and that.
Yeah, I think that's what's so cool about seeing you guys still just consciously choose to stay engaged in community and to stay like invested in your kids and to like find ways to do the things that you love. Like I love seeing all the inventiveness of like what kind of different, you've got all kinds of wheelchairs. I don't even know. Every time I look, I'm like, what is this cool thing you've got that you're in then you're out and doing the thing that you love, right? Being with your family and being in nature, and you still found a way to do those things. You just found a way. So maybe talk about that a little bit. Has there been I'm sure there's been some fun moments of trying to like problem solve, like, okay, how can we do this?
Well, it can be rough. I'm thinking back to a time where when we were learning how to use Rachel's adaptive sled, and it hit a bump the wrong way, and she flipped over on her side.
Oh no!
Kind of her arm.
Shoot!
Like a pretty good sport about those things, and so it is a learning curve, I think. Hey,
hopefully it was a snowy landing.
It was groomed. It was at our Nordic Center up here, so it was a little bit sore. She was a bit sore for a little bit.
I bet.
So we've hard. It was hard. It was not a soft landing.
It was not a soft landing.
But no broken bones, and reasonable recovery.
Well, I thought I saw a picture of a dog pulling you,
I think,
too. Was that just staged, or was that legit? It was almost like a dog sled situation.
One? Sorry.
I said I thought I saw a picture with a dog pulling her, too.
Yes. Yeah, that is not staged. Hold on a second. Yes, that is a dog sled. That's our dog tied up to her adaptive sled.
Okay.
It was a bit of a process of learning how to manage everybody at the time. We found that the dog, because she's just one dog and she was still a puppy, that she works well helping me pull up the hills, and I'd skate ski behind her sled. So I would push her sled skate skiing, and then I'd hook her up for the hill parts when I needed more help. But I think there's that maybe experienced grace in the learning process.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to adapt to new things all the time, and trying to figure out what's reasonable for expectations, what we can do and how to do it. Our dog was a puppy, and so how do you manage like Rachel's sled and the kids and the dog who's going nuts and so excited to be running
on slippery surfaces,
on a downhill slide through an underpass tunnel. It's been challenging, and there's been some hairy moments. I think in almost anything, whether it's with her, I think we just try and push the limit and try to engage in life as much as possible, and so like whether that's us going camping last summer. Like we went camping last summer in the rain with a bunch of people in a tent with Rachel, and it was like, and I think maybe it's like I'm thankful for my own health that I'm able to make some of these things happen. But we ended up with Rachel's what we call Verve, or the mountain wheelchair that she has. A piece of it broke off or fell off part of the way up a hike. We wanted to try going hiking with it, and this is our dream. And so I ended up carrying Rachel up to the top of this hike. It was like up to a lake, and a bunch of our friends who came along. It was a whole group of people that we invited, and I carried her like probably from the lion of the share on my back, but other friends came along and did fireman carry, and they carried her on the back, and so we felt like it was like a bit of a metaphor, for
Hmm.
life on people's back.
Yeah,
When stuff
seriously.
happens, we're gonna make it. We could have just easily turned around. The bugs were bad, at where where we were. We're just gonna do it. We're just gonna make it happen, right? So, and then at the end, we're like, no, we're probably not gonna do that again. We did that, and that's the end of that.
Yeah, we're not doing that again.
It's something I think we've maybe.
Hmm.
Oh, it happened.
Oh yeah, we were also gifted a stay at a cabin on ski hill here, from one of our neighbors, and but it was like, we got there and it was freezing cold. It hadn't been heated,
Mm.
stove, and so Rachel doesn't really do well with heat cold or really hot, and so
Mm.
we stoked the fire. Finally, like after several hours, it was warm enough to take our jackets off, but then it got so hot that Rachel
Mm.
couldn't function. So, and there was like an outhouse, and so we just did it. We're like, we're gonna try it, and we're gonna go. And then so Rachel's like, this is not good for me. Like, we can't get the temperature right, and it's really hard on her body. So we took her back down, and then the next night our kids got sick, and I got sick. We got like the flu, and so we're like in this house, like up all night in this log cabin in the forest, and it was just like this, almost like it was almost comedic. Like it was just like,
It
how
was
did
so
this happen?
bad. It was like I so relate. We've definitely had. I mean, it sounds like living overseas, really. Like, I mean, it really does. Like, just problem solving and being in situations sometimes that we're like, how are we even in this situation? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. And you're like, okay, how do we get through this? Like, okay, let's just, keep trekking. Yeah. Oh
Of
man.
course, most people with disabilities don't go on snowmobiles to get to a cabin, so that
That's
was
very
kind of like
true.
that's.
That's quite adventurous.
So
So,
Rachel is adventurous, so that's
I was
kind of
going
the
to say,
part of
who's
it.
more adventurous? I can't quite tell who's more adventurous.
I don't know. We're probably equally matched
Oh, so
that way,
cool.
but
So
she's more,
cool.
maybe more brave. It requires trust in me quite a bit, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to drop her or you
Hmm.
know carry her down embankments to get to the river. Those kind of things.
So tell me, like, how do you, I'm sure that you've had to pull in help at different times for different reasons, either help with the kids or help around the house or help out. How has it been hard to know sometimes when to ask for help or when to reach out or how to reach out, or has that become easier over time, or like, what is that like for you guys?
I think like I think it's been a transition. In Langley, we kind of figured some things out, and that kind of moved into when we were here in Smithers. I think at first it was hard for me or us to accept help, right? To admit that we couldn't do it on our own,
Mm.
um, and then to identify like what is helpful. People are willing
Yeah.
to help. They're compassionate, and what is actually helpful for our family system, right? And if you have tons of people coming in and out of the house, it's also hard on our kids and our
Yeah.
family life as well. And so it's been a period of discernment and figuring it out.
Hmm.
And at the end, it was like, meals are helpful, right? Sometimes cleaning is helpful. I was still working full time, and I think that's the hard part. It's been a continued adjustment. So I was working kind of full time and then part time, and then like when we were moving, I was off for a year or so, just trying to figure out how to do life and meet the needs. But it was that constant, like you find yourself at a point where like this is not working, it's not enough. So how
Yeah.
do you rope in people? And so for us, it was like, how do we keep our kids' lives normal? And that ended up being that they would go to play dates sometimes when I was working. Sometimes that was our church was amazing in Langley that they got meals together for us, and so people would bring us meals a couple times a week. And that made a huge difference, as far as like the overall burden of what needed to happen in a day. And sometimes there was people who just served in ways that were fitting for them. So one of the ladies volunteered to clean once a month or something like that, and that
Hmm.
anything that helped the overall system was great.
Hmm.
Um, and I think like it's humbling sometimes,
Hmm.
receiving that. I think receiving care and support from people, and also I think we've seen how it's a blessing to not only us but to other people as well. I think it's been a
Hmm.
surprising thing for me, to see the ways that people have wanted to enter into our lives and have been blessed by connecting with us. Not that it's anything about us, but they are encouraged by that support. as well, even though
Well,
they're like really good friends.
I think you're a counselor, right?
Yes,
So
yeah,
I like you both came from caring professions, right? And so like to be the carers and now to receive the care is different, right? Like and it's changed probably everything about I imagine the way that you practice in your counseling and just recognizing I don't know, how has that changed actually your counseling? Um, how do you relate to people differently because of all of this?
yeah. I think it probably, like anything, when you're suffering, you experience. Everybody experiences suffering and pain in a different way, but I think going through the hard things and the deep things in life, it brings you to a different space that you can relate
Totally.
to people in a different way. Um, it may be in the same way that Rachel, as a midwife, having an emergency C-section when she wanted a beautiful birth in a birthing pool.
She knows that I
Um,
know what that's like. She knows.
yeah, and like with our
Yeah.
second with our son, she had a V.
No, we lost the call. Oh,
There
we're
you go.
back. There we
We're
are.
back. Yeah, and so I think I can relate. I relate to my clients differently because of the depth of experience that we've been to, right? I think if you everything go right in your life, like it's a great thing, but you can't resonate. You don't experience the same thing as other people sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you empathize in the
There's
same
something
way.
that's
Yeah,
yeah,
lived experience
everything
is different for sure.
than theoretical for sure.
Yeah.
So
So,
yeah,
where are you guys at right now? You were saying, I mean, there's been some changes recently, like, or has there been, yeah, where are you guys at right now? And like, you said that there's still no clarity about what's going on or what the next steps are, or do you have some next steps that you're seeking out, or where are you guys at right now?
I guess we've always been trying to pursue things, try to do more stuff. Um, I guess the latest development had been in the spring when or last fall when our doctor, the spring and fall last year, 2020, when our doctor was digging through the case notes and saw Rachel's decline in health, and also the previous neurologist querying whether this was ALS. And that was kind of like she said, I think this could be this, and so I want to refer you to an ALS specialist. And that kind of um, was a bit of a specter for us because we've walked beside a family in our church that who was diagnosed at the same time as Rachel, with
Mm,
ALS, and kind of a year after. Well, he was diagnosed a year after Rachel, I think, after Uriel.
Secure.
He was a year after than Rachel, but he declined and ended up passing away last year. And so that
mm,
was a specter that kind of has continued to shadow at least me or us, that uncertainty that it might be something catastrophic like that, and that's where we're headed. And so that was, even hearing that and from our GP was a pretty difficult thing to
mm,
wrap our minds around, to look at kind of an end life timeline like that. And so we saw a specialist then in November, or sorry, October this past year, who was an ALS specialist at the ALS clinic in GF Strong in Vancouver.
mm.
And she could say unequivocally that it was not MS, not PLS, but not ALS. And so we're,
Wow.
on one hand, very thankful of that. And also, like, she's like, at the same time, I don't know what this is. So she
Mm,
kind of ordered a round of more treatments, um, to to kind of or sorry, testing to check out and see if they missed anything, including like the colonoscopy, mammograms, all kinds of scans again, blood tests, to see that they didn't miss anything, and this could be caused by something else. And so autoimmune was checked out again, and at the same time recommended an IV treatment for autoimmune disorders and neurodegenerate disorders. So we've been doing the testing kind of over time, and have just started with the IV treatments, once a month for 6 months to see if it makes a difference. And so there, that was last week, 2 days in a row, kind of for 5 hours on an IV, which was pretty hard on Rachel.
mm.
Um, So now we're just kind of waiting to see if that changes over time. We also went to Mexico to a facility, a clinic there that has had lots of positive results for people who have autoimmune and all kinds of different stuff. And we're seeking to do stem cell treatment, thinking that this might have been like a biological challenge or an issue for her body that might be repaired by stem cells. And so, we had them harvested and reimplanted from Rachel, and hope to see some improvement kind of by now, and saw a little bit of an up in January, and then kind of a stabilization in February. And then March was a harder month again, just with function and daily life. And so I think it's been hard to grapple with that disappointment.
Yeah.
We're not completely, uncertain that it won't happen, because you can see results up to a kind of 9 months after the treatment year. But our hope was certainly for like an increase in health, and certainly, like, life is a challenge. Everything is a challenge. And blood, which part? Yeah, and we're also pursuing genetic testing as well. So it feels like we're doing all things a number of things at once, right? We're doing this Mexican treatment in Mexico, seeing this neurologist. We're also doing genetic testing through the metabolic clinic in VGH. And her blood is being sent to Finland to a lab that's being, they're looking through all her genes to see if there's anything that might be causing this. And so it's a rock that we haven't overturned yet, and we kind of we keep on walking down and hope that there's more avenues to search out. But
well, it's that waiting, right? It's the waiting on God that's hard, just the waiting in general. And I think one thing that I find that's challenging in waiting periods is which posture do I take right now? Do I need to be in the fight posture? Like we're going to like fight until we find, or am I in the submitted posture? Like, and what is the Lord asking for me in this moment? Like, is now the time that we keep fighting? And then is now the time that we, like you're like changing postures, and it's hard always to know what posture to be in, right? Like, how do I keep accepting where we're at, but also keep pursuing and hoping for something different, right? It's that tension that's really hard to hold, because it's both and, right? You're grieving and you're hoping. It's not one or the other. I think it's like both, right? You're, fighting for joy, but you're also submitting to what it is, like it's all of it. It's the tension that's so much of the waiting, I think.
Yeah. And I think like there's always this tension between like the here and now and the future, right? Like eternity and heaven and the coming of Christ, again, return of Christ, and that heaven piece. And it's like it's hard to keep that in mind and have that hope there while still struggling in the present, like to not want to be there now because things are really hard, but still like live the life that you have here. I think that's a hard piece, to have a leg almost in two worlds at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. Because there's the hope that things will be better then, but it's like sometimes that feels a long way away. And like, how do I get from now till then, right? Just the daily grind is so hard sometimes that it can feel really just hard to keep walking forward.
Yeah. Certainly the postures resonates with us, I think. How do you hold those different postures at different times? And I think probably it's like those, like the stages of postures of grief, they don't happen in sequence. They happen at different times happening, and what's going on in your life.
What encouragement, just to sort of maybe end us off, because I don't want to take too much of your time and your energy, but just to end off, like, what would you say for maybe people who are in the same sort of position, like they're going through some kind of chronic suffering and they're just really struggling? How would you encourage them? What would you sort of say how would you encourage them? Yeah.
Choose joy.
Choose joy.
Yeah. Choose joy.
And to still live. And to still live. It just seems like you're still squeezing out every ounce of life, right? In so many ways. You're like doing all of the things, like you're trying to do all the things that you can and not letting it stop you from experiencing life with your kids and, enjoying them and watching them do things. And it's really cool to see that, you guys. Like I see that through social media, just the ways that you're still doing the things that you love and staying in proximity to those you love and That's really cool. Yeah, that's really cool.